everyone. It's Dr. Manjiri Narkani, Ayurvedic MD, registered holistic nutritionist, back today for another session of Wellness Wednesday. For today's session, we are going to discuss all about children's anxiety. This entire month, we have been discussing various topics in children's health. The last session, we have discussed a lot about food sensitivities. What are some common foods that can trigger, sensitivities in a child, and some of the reactions to those food sensitivities, anxiety being one. So today we are going to elaborate a little bit more on anxiety. Anxiety is a common phenomena nowadays, so it shouldn't be that common. But unfortunately, what happens is, in today's world, anxiety, being anxious, being constantly on the go, is a part and parcel of today's life. And when that anxiety can be crippling, it can interfere with your life, it can interfere with your child's life, if it's affecting the grades, if it's affecting their play, their stress level is extremely high, it is time to really get support for anxiety. So what you should know, that it is a common issue, and often there are a lot of different triggers, so you have to understand the trigger, and that is the first step to be able to understand what kind of relief can you give the child. So often, the number one cause could be separation anxiety. When a child is too young, leaving them alone, parents going to work, or um, you know uh, parents go out somewhere, the child is left by themselves or left with somebody that they don't know as well, could be a totally trusted person, but that is one thing that could elicit a lot of anxiety. Changes with routine. So for children, having a routine is extremely important. When we talk about Ayurveda, we talk about dinacharya, ratricharya, we talk about establishing routines, because these are going to give a lot of comfort to the body. So any sudden changes can create more anxiety as well. Often social situations, whether it's rejection, whether it's bullying, new schools, newer environments can happen, a lot of academic pressure can be there. I see a lot of kids who have imbibed this perfectionist attitude from the parents, where they are pushing themselves, and though they have good grades, they can have a lot of anxiety. Another one is overstimulation, right? So overstimulation is another one that's super common in today's world, where there are busy environments, there's constant stimulation, whether it could be due to gadgets, video games, TV, and especially if your child has any sensory issues, or they are sensitive, to all these sensory issues, this is going to overstimulate them, right? Any family conflicts, any kind of stress at home is going to trigger the anxiety. So these are the immediate triggers for the anxiety when we talk about childhood anxiety. Now, again, when we talk about your health and anxiety from an Ayurvedic perspective, anxiety is a state where the rajas guna of the mind, the mind is hyperactive, there is too many thoughts going on, there is overstimulation, and that is a very rajasic state of mind. And from a bodily perspective, you can understand that vat dosh, which is the dosh that is related to movement, which causes excessive movement, this hyperactivity, whether it's in the mind, whether it's in the body, it's related to vata dosh. And that has to be curtailed, that has to be balanced by giving children a balanced diet. So as we discussed last time, number one step for lifestyle strategy or nutritional strategy is to eliminate any kind of food sensitivities. Some of the most common ones that are linked with anxiety are caffeine intake. So if your child is drinking a lot of pop, pop contains a considerable amount of caffeine, and that caffeine could trigger the anxiety. Food coloring, whether it's red dye, yellow dye, blue, green, any colored, dyes, those can trigger anxiety. Excess sugar, in the diet, is going to create blood sugar imbalances, and that can trigger anxiety. So you have to first identify from a dietary perspective that where is the scope for changing, where can you better your child's diet, and which are the foods that are probable causes of sensitivity, that are probable causes of anxiety, and you can eliminate this. And this is something I see on a day to day basis when I do muscle testing for food sensitivities in my clinic. I do work with a lot of children, and often we see that once you have taken out the cause of, the sensitivity, when you have identified the food, when you have eliminated the food that is causing any symptoms, whether it's anxiety, whether it's constipation, whether it's hyperactivity, you will see that the child behaves very differently. The child is less anxious, the child is less hyperactive, the child has less stress from a physical internal perspective when you're taking these sensitivities out, right? So nutritionally, what else can you do? Balancing blood sugar levels is very important. So some simplest thing that I suggest for all parents is, add protein at each meal. So rather than starting the day with pancakes and maple syrup or any sugary syrup, some kind of a protein, be it eggs, or if you're a vegetarian, you could make chickpea omelets. So those are some strategies. There has to be protein at each meal to help with focus, to help with concentration, to stabilize the body, and to prevent anxiety. Protein breaks down into amino acids, that is extremely important for building the neurotransmitters. The raw material for neurotransmitters comes via protein. So balancing blood sugar with some protein at each meal is going to be the number one thing. And before that, you have to make sure you're taking out all the fruit juices and all the pancakes, or at least add some form of protein along with it, right? Or some form of fiber along with it, that is going to prevent those crashes. Because often when the child crashes, it is going to create fluctuations in the mood, it is going to create a lot of anxiety. Another cause that I have seen in relation to high sugar is candida. So when we talk about candida, candida is a commensal, it's a yeast that is found in everyone, right? So all human beings will have some amounts of candida, but this commensal, which is living in your gut, can grow out of proportion. It will grow in extreme quantities, and it will create more inflammation in the body. It can give rise to any of the itchy rashes, especially it will start exhibiting signs and symptoms in the moist areas of the body. So any of the eczema, behind your knees or elbows, or sweaty areas like armpits, if you're having those rashes, that can be related to candida. And candida in children is often difficult to treat, because you cannot completely restrict the child's diet. You cannot completely take all the sugars or carby foods out, because they also require sugar or complex carbs for their activity, their mental health, right? So identifying whether your child has any dysbiosis, any excess yeast growth, any excess bad bacteria, that can trigger the anxiety as well, is super important, right? So once you have tried to balance the diet, balance the blood sugar, now it's time to balance the diet. Fat is very satiating. Often when you replace sugar, or when you reduce sugar, kids will start having more of the cravings. And one of the best ways to curtail any of the sugary cravings is to add more fat, which does satiate your child. So simple foods like avocados, nuts and seeds, soaking almonds in water overnight, peeling those almonds, chewing and making them eat first thing in the morning is a great strategy to help build up the ojas in the body, to help build up the vitality in the child. Another thing you can do is, add fattier nuts and seeds. Pumpkin seeds are fantastic with zinc. Flaxseed, walnuts, chia seeds have good amounts of omega 3s that are also shown to help balance the mood, reduce the anxiety. So these are some simple things that you can start implementing in your child's diet. Avocados, instead of having like any chocolates or chocolate milk. You can do a simple chocolate pudding without adding any sugar with avocados, blending avocados with unsweetened cocoa powder. You can add a little bit of maple syrup if needed, or a natural sweetener like monk fruit. And that is delicious. At the same time, it's going to support your child's brain health by giving them good fat, by giving your child a good dose of magnesium. B vitamins are found in whole grains. So instead of having those white flour products, always choose a variety of grains, as well as pseudo grains like quinoa or millets are going to be fantastic, right? Now, gut health is something that has to be paid attention to. And when we talk about probiotics, there are certain strains of probiotics that can promote calmness in a child or a person. And often regulating the gut is super important here. So, as we discussed about candida, there can also be excess of the bad bacteria, right? So, if your child has a lot of gas with odor, smelly farts, it's time to look at the gut health. And once you correct the gut, which is the seat of vata from an Ayurvedic perspective, you will see that your child is way less anxious. So, adding probiotic rich foods like buttermilk is great. Fermented vegetables, sauerkraut is great. You can also add prebiotic foods like green plantains, asparagus, oats to help maintain a healthy microbiome. You have to establish routines for calming the anxiety. So one simple way is to create schedule for meals, for playtime, for homework, bedtime. So the routine, as I said, is extremely important. And make sure you incorporate activities like reading or listening to music over playing video games. Try not to make your child watch or monitor what they watch. A lot of violent video games, a lot of horror stories are going to trigger a lot of anxiety. And in place of that, you can encourage your child to spend some time outdoors and really help them experience the soil, experience the sun, and experience the vibrancy outside rather than being home all day with video games. Another thing is, activity is extremely important for children. So if you see a child is not playing, they will have a lot of nervous energy. So if they go out, they play, they move their bodies, they're jumping, dancing, any way they can, they're burning all this nervous energy, and that is really going to support calm the anxiety that your child has. And then incorporating simple breathing techniques. You can, one simple thing I tell all my clients, children or adults, is one hand goes on the chest, the other one goes on the belly, and close your eyes and start taking 3 to 5 deep breaths where you can actually feel the movement of your chest, uh, as well as your belly, with your hands. So when you do deep breathing, if you do any of the yogic practices, you will see that your child has much less anxiety than before. But it's important for this to be a part of the daily lifestyle. And now let's talk about 5 things to supplement that can calm an anxious child. The number one is magnesium. Children today are magnesium deficient. They do not have a well balanced diet. Often, if your child is picky, is avoiding a lot of the green vegetables, your child is not going to get enough magnesium. And magnesium is required in the body for over 200 reactions, including one action is calming the nervous system, right? So if your neurotransmitters are not formed well, if they are not regulated, you are probably deficient in magnesium, or your child is probably deficient in magnesium. So making sure your child has magnesium as a supplement, or adding a few cups of Epsom salts to the bath, is going to provide with good amounts of magnesium. So that's one of the simple things you can do. The second one is to add supplementation of L-theanine. So L-theanine is nothing but an amino acid found in green tea. It will promote relaxation. It does not cause any kind of drowsiness, and it does help increase the levels of GABA, which can help calm the child. I'm gonna say a quick hi to Rima. Rima's here. Hi, Rima. We're talking about children's anxiety. So, L-theanine is another supplement you can safely incorporate in your child's daily practice. Always consult a nutritionist or a healthcare practitioner to decide dosages for supplementation. Omega 3 fatty acids are often found in foods like salmon, mackerel, sardines, walnuts, flaxseed, chia seeds. But if you have a picky child who's not having a well balanced diet, omega 3 supplementation is crucial. If you have child that is struggling with any of the cognitive issues, if the focus, memory, concentration are an issue, always choose an omega 3 that has higher amounts of DHA, which support the cognitive health. The fourth one is vitamin D. Vitamin D is extremely crucial for regulating mood, especially in the Canadian weather. So, since we started with the fall solstice, I don't think in Sarnia or in Canada we've seen like the sun for the past 5 days. So, it is extremely important to ensure your child has good doses of vitamin D. 400 international units is the typical dose for vitamin D, but you can safely give up to a 2000 international units dose to your child for his or her vitamin D needs. Uh, Probiotic rich foods to support the gut brain axis have been studied. So, sauerkraut, fermented vegetables, pickles, which are fermented without sugar, buttermilk, homemade yogurt is a great way to add some probiotics to your child's health. Another of the simple herbs you can start implementing in your child are Brahmi or Bacopa, which is an Ayurvedic herb. So, this has been used for thousands of years in Ayurvedic medicine. You can use Brahmi in the form of powder and you can just add it to your child's, you can either make a simple tea out of it or add a little bit with honey and just make your child lick it. And that really helps improve focus, concentration, and balances anxiety. Another thing to use is holy basil. So, holy basil is found in the form of tinctures or capsules or teas. And holy basil is also something that helps deal with anxiety. It is a very calming herb known for its calming effect on the nervous system. It promotes digestion and it's also something that is very strengthening to your lungs. So, these are a few tips on managing childhood anxiety. If you're watching this live, please write about your favorite strategy that I mentioned. If you are watching this as a replay, you can post any questions that you have. For next month, Wellness Wednesdays, we are all going to discuss all about breast health and breast cancer prevention. October is the World Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So that's all we are going to talk about. Going to talk about different strategies to support your breast health. We're going to talk about lymphatics. We're going to talk about nutrients, the best practices, diet, etc. So stay tuned for next month, Wellness Wednesdays, which will start on, I think it's the 2nd of October. Yeah, 2nd of October is we're going to talk all about breast health. So thank you for watching. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you next Wednesday for another session of Wellness Wednesday. Bye for now.